Are you ready to take your message, your business, and your life to the next level?
Want to learn from someone with more than a decade of experience, training tens of thousands of people from all around the world?
Hi, Cliff. This is Pauline from Auckland, New Zealand.
John from Calgary, Alberta.
Amy Porterfield.
Michael Hyatt.
Dan here from Dunedin, New Zealand.
Ray Edwards.
Mark Mason. Mike Stelzner.
Pat from Smart Passive Income.
It's Darren from Melbourne, Australia.
Now is the time to live the life of your dreams and do the work you feel most called to do in the world.
Welcome to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show.
Here's your host, Cliff Ravenscraft.
Welcome back, my friends. Now is time to live the life of your dreams and to do the work you feel most called to do in this world. Hey, in this episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, I am going to be sharing with you some advice that I recently gave to a member of my Next Level Mastermind. Now, those of you who may not know about the Next Level Mastermind, it's a high-level, high-achieving group of professionally minded, never-ceasing personal and professional growth and development type of people who gather together on a weekly basis where every single person is absolutely committed to the success of every other person in the group. Every person in my mastermind groups will tell you that their favorite meeting on their calendar every single week is the time that we spend together as the Next Level Mastermind. Now, what I'm going to do in this episode, and I have permission to do this, I'm going to share with you, let's see, it looks like it's 25, almost 26 minutes worth of a clip, or two different clips, from the advice that was given to one of the members of the Next Level Mastermind in her most recent hot seat. Now, I have intentionally taken her name out of there anytime. And by the way, I'm only giving my advice. So let me explain to you what happens in the Next Level Mastermind. The format of our meeting is that all of us come together in the first 10 or 15 minutes of our meeting. We sit down and share what's called our win of the week. We always, no matter what's going on in the world, no matter what kind of challenges or obstacles we're currently facing in our own business or personal life, we always want to start the meeting off with something that we're filled with gratitude about. This is something that's a win of the week. This is something that's going on in my personal life that's a huge win. This is something that's going on in my business that's a huge win. It doesn't matter. It can be personal, professional. It doesn't matter. We start every meeting off, everybody shares like a win of the week. Then after that, one of the up to 12 members of the Next Level Mastermind is in the hot seat. That means that every other person on the call, including myself, is going to listen to that individual in the hot seat, and they will state, hey, this is what I'm currently working on right now, that my overall vision, here's an overview of what's my business is and this part of my business, and here's a goal and desired outcome that I have. I'd love to get your advice on this question, this question, this question. Now, sometimes it can be exactly like that. It could be all kinds of other things. Matter of fact, it's whatever that person wants. If they want to just dialogue with us and they just need several other lampposts to talk to and speak out loud, they can do that if that's what they want. But the idea is that, the format of today's hot seat with this particular member was pretty much along the line. Let me give you an overview. For those of you who are newer to the group that don't understand my business model, here's my business model. Now, I'm not sharing her name, not because she wouldn't be willing to, but because we talked about some things that she's going after, and we also very much spoke about a potential sponsor that she is considering approaching with a very large proposal. So what I am going to do is give you some details of what was brought up in that thing, but again, with no indication of what this person's name is, and you won't, matter of fact, you're going to hear her voice in very few sections of this. And I've even actually made the decision, she didn't request this, but I made the decision to change the sound of her voice so that it doesn't even sound like her. Okay. I just protecting this. But what happened was after this hot seat today, I'm like, oh, I love that advice. And I wish more people could hear this. And I think that this would make an inspired piece of content that fits the definition of what I think the Cliff Ravenscraft Show should be. That somebody should come away with this type of actionable insight. Not actionable tasks that you should go do, but man, you should be able to hear this and immediately start to see, oh, you know what? I could actually adopt that thought process of how I go about doing something in my life or in my business. And when I heard how practical that was, I knew that the 25 minutes that I spoke giving advice in her hot seat, that I would love to share that with the world. And so I asked her, I said, listen, it was mostly me talking. I've edited out. I put this little roadrunner, meep, meep. Anytime I said your name, anytime I said the name of your sponsor that you're thinking about pursuing, I bleeped all of that out. And anytime, and there's only 2 or 3 spots where you spoke at all in the clips that I would want to use, and I changed your voice so that nobody would ever. And she's like, Cliff, absolutely, go ahead. And she goes, I can't wait to listen to it. So thank you. You know who you are. Anyway, I do also want to share something else with you. So let me tell you. Well, actually, let me share this additional thought. So one of the things that'll happen is I make it a point that the mastermind group gives everyone else in the group an opportunity to speak into the life of the person in the hot seat. And I intentionally choose to put myself either last or at least near the last or after, there's not a queue of people who are eager to jump in with their next advice. So what happens is I'm viewing the Zoom meeting, which we're on a grid Brady Bunch style screen. And so I see people who are looking to jump in next. Sometimes people will say something in the chat room. They'll say, hey, I've got something I'd like to add. And I keep a queue of how many people who are in line to speak next into the life of the person in the hot seat. So what I want you to know is that prior to what you're about ready to hear, there is already a ton of very practical, amazing, high-quality advice. Again, the advice that the person in the hot seat is getting is from other people who are operating in life at the highest level. So these are people with a tremendous amount of experience. This is people with a tremendous mindset for what's possible and thinking outside of the box and creatively approaching things. These are people who have tried things and failed significantly, massively in areas of their lives, but they came through them learning so much value and they're able to apply that. These are people who have tried things that most people would never dare to try and have succeeded, and they've learned the clues that are left behind from those successes. And they bring all of that advice and wisdom and give that to the person in the hot seat. And I want you to know, I'm going to share with you 2 different sections of where I gave advice, but before I ever spoke, there was already like 40 minutes worth of other people speaking. And in between the 2 clips of me giving advice, there was even some more advice given from some other people. I chose not to include those because the purpose of this was to share with you how my principle of how I start with money first when I determine pricing on products and services or proposed things. Now, what I feel that is safe to share with you is that the person who was in the hot seat was a female, and that'll be evident because you will hear her modified voice. It's very clear that she is a woman. The other thing that I feel is okay for me to share with you is that this is somebody who has created an incredibly awesome business and has been in business for many years successfully. I won't give you all the details of her business, but it's an incredibly awesome business. And she has been creating live events for female entrepreneurs. Live in-person events for female entrepreneurs. Now, since she's joined the Next Level Mastermind, she has also added coaching and her own paid mastermind groups, which actually now makes up more than 50% of her income. But as you can imagine, when coronavirus hit here in early 2020, there was a decrease in potential revenue from let's just say a 100% decrease in potential revenue from in-person live events as a result of coronavirus. And that's prior to joining the Next Level Mastermind, that was 100% of her revenue was in-person live events. And now it's gone, that part of her business has gone to zero income. And so she's launched some other things, some online courses, some virtual events and things like that. And one of the things that happened was when she had all of this years of experience doing in-person events, one of the main revenue sources of those in-person events were sponsors. people who came along and sponsored those events, and they get various things like mentions at the event. Maybe they are a titled sponsor, so that the name of the event, sponsored by. Every time you see the name of the event, it says sponsored by, insert name of sponsor. So she's had, over the years, she's had over 100 paid sponsors for her in-person physical live events. Now, since coronavirus, she's transitioned to doing a lot more online virtual stuff, and she's had some sponsors that said, "Hey, she had one sponsor came on last minute and says, I'd love to be your titled main sponsor," and that was a pretty significant amount that she charged for that sponsorship opportunity. She had given 3 different options: $700, $1,500, and I think it was like $2,500. And that sponsor said immediately, we'll take the $2,500. Yeah. And it was last minute, and it like the day of the event. So she was really excited about that. And now here's what she came to the hot seat. She explained what's going on in her business, the things that she's focused on, and all these things. And she goes, one of my biggest opportunities right now is I had the sponsor that came on at that last minute. They said, "Man, we love your community. We love the target audience. They're exactly the type of people that we want to reach with our message, and absolutely loved our relationship. And it's just this, we want to continue to be a part of what you've got going on moving forward. So please include us in any other sponsorship opportunities." That message came out. So this got this member of our group thinking. She says, "I'd like to, what I'm thinking about is I'm thinking about creating a proposal package for like a 6-month sponsorship." The idea is that, this one person would be an exclusive sponsor, and who knows, that person might be, the idea here is that they're the exclusive sponsor of all of our virtual events all the way through the end of this year of 2020. So that'd be 6 months worth of events. That sponsor would also get several other things from us. So mentions in our social media. That sponsor would also get some sponsored content in some of our email newsletter updates and our written blogs. It'll say that, hey, this valuable piece of content has been sponsored by our exclusive sponsor, blah, fill in the blank, blah, 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 blah. So, and her idea is that, man, what I'm thinking of, what do you guys think about this idea? And I don't know how to price this. My first thought is, man, I don't know how much when they say, hey, we want to be involved in any other opportunities to sponsor your events, I'm not sure how much they're thinking about and all of this stuff. And I have a thought in my mind of what I might charge for a 6-month sponsorship where they're exclusively the sponsor, but I'm kind of fearful whether or not, that'll scare them off and all these other things. And so, and by the way, that number that she was thinking of for 6 months was $25,000. So $25,000 would be the amount that she proposed for exclusive sponsorship of all the stuff that she's going to offer over the next 6 months for her amazing, high quality, super awesome community of female entrepreneurs. All right. So that's what she started with. Now, obviously, like I said, I let everybody else in the mastermind group, I made sure they had the opportunity to ask clarifying questions and give their feedback and advice and stuff like that. And I made sure, hey, I see that so-and-so's next, and then so-and-so's next. And so is there anybody that wants to go after that? If not, I have some things that I'd like to share as well. And so nobody else piped in the chat room while people were giving advice. And then it came time for me to give advice. Then what you are about ready to hear has happened. So what happened is, again, all of that advice had been given. Then I jumped in. You're going to hear a little a musical interlude in between 2 pieces of advice, and then you'll hear all the way up until almost the end of the call. And a little spoiler alert, she not only got some clarity and some confidence about what it is that she was proposing, but she's actually going to end up proposing twice as much. And if this is the value of a mastermind group, and after I play these clips for you, I'm going to come in at the end and close out the show with some additional thoughts. But Here, after everybody else had given their thoughts, after all of that background, here's what I had to share and what I felt would be a very powerful episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show for you. Here's what I said. All right. First of all, I think everything that's been communicated is wonderful, and it would be valuable to go back and re-listen to the replay of this audio.
Yeah.
And so nothing I'm about ready to say is to discount anything that's been said, but I'd love to give you Cliff's perspective on the world and how I go about getting the things that I want. I have taught this to a number of people, and it's shocking to hear at first, but everyone so far that I've seen that have adopted my approach to this, I've seen them succeed massively as long as they can get over the one thing that stands in their way, and that's their own belief of whether or not it's possible. So, this is going to sound crazy, but I never first ask, what would somebody in particular be willing to pay? Where are they financially? I always, in all of my products, in every product or service I've ever created that's been successful, I first ask myself one question: how much money do I want to make? That's the first thing. So I'm gonna tell a few stories. Back in 2010, Dan Miller asked Cliff Ravenscraft, would you like to speak on my No More Mondays cruise? By the way, you have to pay for your own cabin. So, and it's a Valentine's cruise. So by the way, it's going to be you and Stephanie, but I would give you the opportunity to speak to my community. Now I got to tell you, already at that point, 80% of my income was coming in from referrals from Dan Miller. So it was massive, but I was one-on-one coaching at the time. One-on-one coaching. So if I'm not there, and by the way, it was a 7-day cruise. And at the time I was in a place financially where I didn't have enough margin financially to fly myself and Stephanie and potentially our kids all the way to Florida. So we'd be driving down. So it's a 10 days away from any coaching and consulting. And by the way, I was coaching and consulting 7 days a week to be able to generate the amount of income that I was generating. So the idea was this is a Valentine's cruise, and this is the biggest opportunity for me to speak to Dan's most engaged, highest valued clients on his No More Mondays cruise. 10 days. I was starting to freak out. And the biggest thing for me is, how do I handle childcare for 3 children for 10 days? And the cost of the cruise, the cost of the childcare, and the cost of being away with 10 days without income. I was freaking out. And so I called Dan Miller, and I'm embarrassed to tell you the story. I went to Dan and I said, hey, Dan, what do you think about I've already talked to Stephanie about this. Matter of fact, she's totally on board because she despises the idea of leaving our children for 10 days. So Stephanie floated the suggestion, and I'd like to ask you what you think about this. What do you think about the idea of me coming on this cruise without Stephanie and speaking to your community? He says the offer to speak would be withdrawn. He says, I think that's a terrible idea. I think it would do more to damage your credibility and reputation in the minds of the people to go on a Valentine's cruise and leave your wife behind with the kids. And he said, so you're either in or you're out. And I made a decision in that moment. Dan, not only am I in, Stephanie and I will be there, but we're bringing all 3 of our children with us. All right. Now, let me tell you, I can tell you by making that decision in the moment, I already knew it was going to cost more to buy a cabin big enough for our entire family of 5 than it would have been for Stephanie and I to go and find childcare. But I had just made a decision in the moment. I will be there. Stephanie will be there. And by the way, I'm going to blow people's minds. Not only I'm going to put myself into a position where not only can I take my wife, but we're bringing our family of 5 with us on this cruise. At that moment, I made a decision. I made a commitment. Now, I figured it out. I just did the math. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to be out of my business for 10 days. That typically would equal this amount of income for those 10 days. I realized there's going to be some marketing that needs to happen of something. There's going to be some follow-up. There's going to be some administrative stuff. But then I also needed to figure out how much is it going to cost for all 5 of us to be on this cruise? How much is it going to cost for all 5 of us to go on excursions with the other people on this cruise? How much is it going to cost for gas money all the way to Florida? How much is it going to cost for the hotels that we stay, because we're not going to drive from Kentucky to Florida all in one drive? How much is it going to cost? I had to do all of the math, and it came out I needed $16,000 to go on this cruise. And then I went to my mastermind group and said, guys, I absolutely have already committed. I must come up with $16,000 by this date. And that actually became the idea for, what if you did a 4-week training program where 20 people paid you $800? Thus was the beginning of Podcasting A to Z. And so now I need $16,000. Boom, set goal, set number. What am I willing to give in return for that $16,000? A 4-week training program for 20 students at $800 per student. Do the math on that. And then instantly I made the decision. That's what I'm going to do. I began to market it immediately. It started marketing just a couple weeks before the thing. And by the time we were on the road, I had already sold, I think it was like 11 spots. As Stephanie was driving to Florida, I was in the passenger seat with my laptop. This is before we had LTE connections and built-in Wi-Fi and all this other stuff. I had this really crazy, big, gigantic PCI modem plugged into my laptop, and I'm sitting there answering emails, and I'm literally selling, answering questions, taking phone calls on the drive down, selling a few spots. By the way, 6 people on the cruise signed up on the spot after hearing my talk on the cruise. 6 of those couples on the cruise signed up for my Podcasting A to Z class, and I signed my 20th person on the Monday following after I got back. 20 people. I made the $16,000 right then and there, and boom, that launched it. And I only did 2 sessions at $800, and I was freaking out about $800. But eventually, I went and met Jason Van Orden. He goes, Cliff, here you want to. He goes, I love this story. I love what you're doing. The only thing I'm going to push you on is you need to create a $2,000 option. Just add that to your sales page, a $2,000 option, and tell them that they'll get like some one-on-one with you after the course and blah, blah, blah. He goes, you do that and you'll just watch how many people will gravitate towards the $2,000 option, even if you only expect to sell the $800. Well, I did not follow his advice exactly. Instead, I just took the 3rd session of Podcasting A to Z, and I took away the $800 option, and I only went to $2,000, and I sold all 20 spots of that, and I continued and I continued and continued. That's one story. $16,000 is what I want. What am I willing to give in return? And I will accept nothing less than what I want. Boom. So that's one story. Free the Dream Conference is another experience. I'm like, listen, I want $240,000 a year. And I went to my whiteboard and said, what am I willing to give in exchange? I'm willing to create a mastermind group where at the time, my mind was that I'd have 24 people in 2 different groups of 12 who would pay $1,000 a piece. And what would they get for that experience and that payment? And thus the Next Level Mastermind was born. The other thing is I'd love to have 12 people pay $2,000 a piece for next level workshops. I did it over and over again, was able to make $24,000 which if I did that once a month, that would have been $240,000 a year just in once a week weekend workshops. But then I wonder if I could make $240,000 from an event. And that's like, I'm going to create Free the Dream, where my goal is 300 people come at an average ticket price of $1,000 per person. It's going to cost me $60,000 in expenses, but I'll make $240,000 on profit. Now, those of you who know my journey, I succeeded at the Next Level Mastermind of hitting the goal of $240,000. I succeeded in creating Next Level workshops that hit the goal of $240,000 and beyond. But I never truly succeeded in reaching that profitability of $240,000 on Free the Dream. But that's only because I was trying to do that on top of the other things, and I put my hand in too many things and a lot of limiting beliefs about how many things I should be marketing at the same time. But with that being said, there's never been a time in my business pursuits where I didn't first ask, how much money must I have? What am I willing to give in exchange? So what I'm not, and by the way, this is me not trying, I'm not trying to influence what you do, but what I'd like to do is tell you what I would do. And if it influences you, that's great. And if it doesn't, that's fine. So if I was in this position, this is what I'd be asking. Do I want $25,000 between now and the end of this year from a single sponsor? Or do I want $50,000? Yeah, I'd be asking that question. Or do I? What is the number of what do I want? Not where is. I could right now in my mind as I'm doing this first step in the process, I could care less where is, because he's not the only person for me to consider. There's plenty of other people where I could go. Because the thing is if I went to, well, who are my existing clients, of people that I've worked with? Nobody's ever paid me this much money per month before. And if I go, well, if based upon these people and my experience of who I worked with, how many of those are going to be willing to pay me? I didn't start there. The question is, I want $1,000 a month from 24 people in 2 different groups in the Next Level Mastermind. That's what I want. I start there and saying, what am I willing to give in return? And then who would be a good fit for that? So this is what I would do. I would start first with how much money do I want? Is $25,000 the number? Would that actually give me the margin to do the things? And would that make, is that the one thing that if I had that, it would make everything else that I do in my business infinitely easier or unnecessary altogether? So I'd be asking, is $25,000 the right number? So I'm going to pause for just a second because I still have a lot more to say on this. And let me ask you, is $25,000 the right number?
I think it's a safe number.
What's the right number? While you're thinking about that, I continue there. Pause for just a second. When I say the right number, what is the number that if you got this from another potential sponsor, if you got this amount, man, it would, you know what? I could actually probably host these events and not have to charge anything. Marketing would be infinitely easier. The number of people who'd come would blow up because people would be attending for free versus $100 per ticket or $20 per ticket or whatever. What's the number that makes it infinitely easier so that you don't have to do unless you absolutely want to. You don't have to do a lot of other things unless you want to. What's the number that would be right for you between now and the end of this year? What's the number that would just make everything infinitely easier, and a lot of things that you, quote unquote, would have worried about, all that worry goes away because financially your needs are met because of an incredible sponsor / partner in the work that you're doing that serves all these people. You're getting all these connections and they're getting all of this exposure. What's the right number that would make everything else infinitely easier? Not the safe number, the right number.
Probably double that.
50K. Love it. Awesome. So if this were me and $50,000 were the right number, I would go somewhere. Do you have a whiteboard?
No, but I have a bunch of sheets of paper.
I'd take a sheet of paper, but I wouldn't take a regular pen. I'd get a Sharpie marker and put something under it because it's going to bleed through, and get something that it's okay. But I'd get a big Sharpie marker and I would write really big on there, $50,000. Just physically writing it out. By the way, you're 42% more likely to get anything you want in life if you will simply write it down physically. That is absolutely scientifically proven through studies. All right. So write down 50,000. get emotionally, start thinking about what would my life in my business and my team be able to do with $50,000. Start dreaming about how that would change the future of your business over the next 6 months, how it would give you the creative freedom to do things. So you're not always, how do I make money? How do I make money? How do I make, you can actually, how do I add value? How do I add value? How do I add value? You can put your best time, effort, and energy of who you are into the things that matter most. How do I add value? Then how do I make the next buck? All right. So dream about what that would look like for the next 6 months and get really emotionally tied to the idea of what it would be like to have that $50,000. That's what I would do. The next thing that I would do is say, okay, $50,000 is my desired outcome for a sponsorship. From a single sponsorship, I'd love to have, I dream of having, I could visualize what it would be like if I had $50,000 from a single sponsor. So then what I would do is say, what am I willing to give in exchange to receive that? And then I'd make the list. I'd make just the deck sheet, if you will, that pitches all of the things that would be included in a $50,000 pitch. And then if you want to, and only if you want to, I would create a deck sheet that would have 3 different options, just like 1,500, 2,500, or whatever, 750, 1,500, and 2,500. I would create, this is what you would get if you did 25,000. This is what you would get over the next 6 months if you do 35,000. But this is what you would get if you did 50,000.
Right. Yeah, I like that because then it's not just like a yes or no, because I think that's kind of what I'm scared about, is that it's like, in my mind, it's like yes or no.
And I would love to address that. So first of all, you noticed that your lowest is the safe number, which was the highest you were considering before.
Yeah.
Which I already love. All right. Then your middle of the line is already higher than that. And your top of the line, which that client has already proven they tend to gravitate towards, would actually be a wow freaking dream come true, right? But the other thing is now all of a sudden you realize all of this time, effort, and energy that goes into providing all of the value that you would have proposed at the safe number before is tied to the highest number,
right?
Which is where it should be. But then all of a sudden at the 25K level, then all of a sudden if they choose to say yes to that, you're not on the hook for actually doing all of those things, plus having all of the activities that are required to generate the other income that you really needed in your business. And here's the deal. There's still the potential that they look at all 3 numbers and say, what are you, crazy? And so what? That's okay. It's not like you're saying, hey, if we're going to, you remember you asked this, and I have an incredibly awesome proposal to make to you for the next 6 months, exclusive this, blah, 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 and all of that stuff. And I just wanted to run this by you and see if this would be of interest to you. I have a list of sponsors, about 7 people that we've worked with in the past. And I'm going to propose this to others, but I'm giving you the first right to look at this because this is exclusive partnership for the next 6 months. And because of our previous engagements and the fact that you said you wanted to be a participant, I wanted you to give you the first opportunity. And I'll tell you what, I would love to go over this, describe it to you, and I would love to give you the next 7 days to consider if you want one of these 3 positions. And by the way, I would actually say that the 50K is the only thing that's exclusive. The other things, the 35 and the 25K are not exclusive. They'd be in alignment with other people, knowing that somebody is going to have that exclusive 50K number. Okay, so that's Cliff Ravenscraft. That's how I would go about it. Those are my thoughts. I've got another thing that I want to share with you, another thought. The one thing is, and again, I would encourage you to listen to episodes 1 through 10 of Cliff's notes on Think and Grow Rich. All right.
Okay.
You don't have to read the book. Trust me. Not that I'm reading the book, but trust me, if you just listen to this, you'll get everything you need. But that's probably about 5 or 6 hours worth of content, by the way, those 10 episodes. But it will tell you the power of all of this stuff and the importance. And there's this step-by-step formula is in here, and I'm going to find it real quick. Here it is. Number 1, fix in your mind the exact amount of money you desire. All right. Number 2, determine exactly what you intend to give in return for the money you desire. Number 3, establish a definite date by when you expect to possess that reality. I will have this sponsor by this date. Number 4, create a definite plan for carrying out that desire. What's my marketing plan going to be? What actions am I going to take? Write out a clear and concise statement about the amount of money you intend to require. Again, remember, writing this down. You might write in that Sharpie marker, $50,000, sponsor, by this date, okay? Name the time limit of the acquisition, state what you intend to give in return for the money, and describe clearly the plan through which you intend to accumulate it. And then every morning when you wake up and start your day, and every evening before you go to bed, read that statement out loud. By the way, I memorized what my definite chief aim for this year is. I, Cliff Ravenscraft, will generate a minimum of $360,000 in business income by the end of this year. Also, I will have increased my recurring revenue to a minimum of $30,000 per month ongoing revenue, recurring, by the end of this year, by January 1st, 2021. I will do this in the exchange of the value provided through my Next Level Mastermind, my one-on-one coaching, and few other products and services. Boom. That's my statement. It's in my to-do list. It shows up at 6 a.m. or at 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. Every single day I have to check those things off that I've read that to myself out loud. Make this a definite chief aim. The other thing is that I will have this. In fact, to the exclusion of all the other things that might have been on the table, I will freaking have this. That's a part of this. It's like, so for me, I want to tell you, when I launched the Next Level Mastermind, I had spent actually about 10 years doing podcasting A to Z. That's 10 years of marketing podcasting A to Z. You guys will remember, I shut down podcasting A to Z and launched the Next Level Mastermind the very next month after I shut down podcasting A to Z. Now, I was aggressively pursuing people to join the Next Level Mastermind. At the time, it was $1,000 a month. Okay? Now, you may have heard that for the first several weeks, for 6 weeks, Rick and I were in this group together, alone, the two of us, for 6 weeks. And I started the PM group, and I had one person, and it was also just so happened to be 6 weeks. So my income was $2,000 a month. That's it. My income went from approximately $20K per month, from averaged out, because it was actually $40,000 every other month that I was doing podcasting. I went from $20K per month on average down to $2,000 a month of income. What would you do if all of a sudden you had 5 or 6 people say, Cliff, I can't believe you shut down podcasting A to Z. Can't you do one more? I want to give you my $2,000. I'm ready to take your course. What would you do if 8 people said, I'm ready to join your course at $2,000 a piece, and you only have $2,000 a month of income? Most people would launch another session. But that would have let me tell you, I know how much time, effort, and energy goes into serving each student that pays me $2,000. And that would have taken me away from my definite chief aim, my number one purpose, my number one goal that I will have, which is 12 members in each of these 2 mastermind groups. And so I said no to every one of those people so that I could actually work on all of my time, effort, and energy on getting the 12 people in each of the 2 groups. That's the kind of thing. It's like, have this as your definite chief aim. And just to give you an idea of, because I just floated a thought. And the other things, if you listen, you'll hear the importance of thoughts. But I just floated a thought, and I'm going to ask Kim. I know Kim won't mind, but I'm going to just tell you something. I just mentioned this out loud once. I said, guys, I'm thinking about. And by the way, before I floated the idea, I wanted you to hear this. I want to make $60,000 in a single week. I want to make $60,000 in a single week. What would I be willing to give in return for $60,000 in a single week? I would be willing to do a 3.5-day coaching workshop for 12 people, no more than 12 people in my Next Level studio. You come to my home eat dinner at my table, meet with my family, interact here. And this is going to be the next level coaching business workshop, or how to create a profitable coaching career business workshop. I'm going to tell you step by step, not only the techniques and everything about how to build your coaching practice as far as with clients, but I'm also going to teach you how to discover how to coach people. It's going to be $5,000 per person. You come here Thursday night, we have dinner together. We spend all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. You can fly home on Monday. $5,000 a piece. I'm just thinking about this. I have no date in my mind. I don't know when this is going to happen, but if anybody's ever interested, feel free to let me know. Kim reached out to me the next day and says, I'm in as soon as you do it. Now all I need is 11 more people. And the thing is if there's one person who heard that just in passing as I floated the idea, the only thing that's keeping me from making $60,000 in a single week is my decision to say, I'm going to do this by this date. Here's the dates, and I'm now going to market that. And that's going to be my definite chief aim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I have a habit of I think I have a habit of thinking about what I need to survive. And then being like, okay, how do I make that amount? And I don't.
You've got 2 minutes. I'm going to pause you right there, and I'm going to ask you something, and I'm going to get leverage. All right. Okay. Are you or are you not created by God, the creator of all things, for a great purpose?
Yes.
Did God call you to a life of surviving or thriving?
Thriving. So
stop thinking of numbers that will cause you to survive, because that's not who God created you to be. God created you for bigger purposes in the world, and you can't carry out that purpose in this world with just surviving financially.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Well, I went from 25 to 50.
Well, there you go, my friends. That was the advice that I gave during this member's hot seat in a recent meeting of the Next Level Mastermind. You know, there are a couple reasons why I wanted to share this with you. Number one, every single time I've started first by asking, what is the amount of money that I desire to create within my business? Every time I started there and then asked myself, what am I willing to offer in value in exchange for that amount of money? And then say, I must create this by what date? And then now that I have the amount of money that I'm going to generate, how many people do I want to serve, and at what cost per person, and whatever, all of those things, and I have a date, now it becomes a marketing situation. Who are the clients that are the best fit for this? And many times when I've talked with people, it's like, well, you just don't understand. I've been working for the last 3 to 5 years, and I've built this audience, and I know my audience, they won't pay for that. Okay. So maybe you decide who would be the perfect person for this high-end, high-value, high-dollar thing, and realize you don't need to spend 3 to 5 years creating an audience with tons and tons of free content where you need to have about 150 to 200 people who buy your low-cost product. All you need in this case for this member of our mastermind, all she needed is one person for $50,000, one sponsor. And by the way, one thing that came out is she's had over 100 sponsors who have paid her to sponsor her one-off events in the past. So there's we only talked about one particular potential sponsor that she was thinking of proposing to. But the reality is, if they don't take the offer that you heard us just talking about at the end, she still has over 100 other potential sponsors that have paid her in the past to sponsor her physical event that if she just devoted a couple weeks of her time until she actually found one of the over 100 sponsors to pay her to $50,000, and now she has her ultimate outcome. This, my friends, I've worked with, I can't begin to tell you how many clients, hundreds and hundreds of clients one-on-one, and members of my Next Level Mastermind where I've helped them walk through this. You see, I've had this whole Spend the Day with Cliff program where you can come here. In the past, it used to be $7,500. Today, it's $15,000 to come spend a day with me. And every single time I've ever had the Day with Cliff, in most of my one-on-one coaching clients, when we're talking about business, products, services, pricing of those things, we always start with, I hammer this. You have to start with the end in mind. What is your desired outcome? And if your desired outcome is to be able to afford to have this kind of lifestyle, to have these things, to pay off all this debt, okay, tell me, what would it cost to have all of that? Now you've got a dollar number. What are you willing to give in exchange for this? How many hours a week do you want to work? Or, how many people do you want to serve as far as number of individuals you're responsible for giving that value to? And it just becomes an engineered math problem but you start with the end in mind. You start with the amount. And I just wanted to share this philosophy with you. And also, there's a second reason why I wanted to share this is because some of what came out, I've shared this whole start with the money first in mind. But the other thing that came out of this was that, man, this is all fresh after reading just the first 2 chapters of Think and Grow Rich. And he talks about in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, the author, he says, listen, everything starts with a thought. And you allow it to turn into a burning desire that says, I must have this. And you mix it with your thoughts turn into desires, and you set this 6-part process in motion. Determine your outcome, decide what you're willing to, all of the things that I shared, all of that came fresh off of having just reread the first 2 chapters and podcasted 10 episodes of the audio journal about Think and Grow Rich. So, I'm absolutely just thrilled with just how that advice came out in the moment, fresh off of having just be reaffirmed of that information from the philosophy of success taught by Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, in just the first 2 chapters. And by the way, I'm now up to 11 episodes of the audio journal with my notes and my thoughts on Think and Grow Rich. And I'm continuing on. In fact, the 11th episode is just my thoughts. It's a 20-minute episode on my thoughts on the first paragraph of chapter 3. People who are listening to my audio journal updates on Think and Grow Rich, their minds are being blown. And if you are interested in that, I just want to remind you of the audio journal. Go check that out. It's over at mindsetanswerman.com/audio journal. Or you can go to Patreon. It's patreon.com/Cliff Ravenscraft. Either way that you get there, it's a $10 a month subscription. But one of the things that I can tell you is that Think and Grow Rich, my notes, Cliff's notes on Think and Grow Rich, starts with episode 168, and I'm currently at episode 179, going through those notes. And eventually, what I think that I may do is once I have completed, if I choose to continue this process and I give all of my thoughts and notes as I go through, it might end up being 50 or 60 or 70 episodes with all of my notes on the entire book of Think and Grow Rich. If I end up doing that, then what I plan to do what I will probably do at some point in the future is I will create a product with my notes on Think and Grow Rich as a single product where you can just purchase it, and either you'll probably have the option of 2 things. You can download each of the episodes individually, or I may actually combine all of it into a single massive gigantic MP3 file, which might be like, let's just say 20 hours long. So it'll be my own audio product, and I will probably sell that for at least $100. So you could get it for $10 a month as I'm producing it. And plus, not to mention the fact that you get other audio journal episodes in between those Think and Grow Rich updates about what's going on behind the scenes in my business and things of that nature. But also, I'm probably, as soon as I finish Think and Grow Rich, I'm going to pull out other books and do the same thing for them because I absolutely love the audio journal format. So if you haven't checked it out, I encourage you today to go to mindsetanswerman.com/audio journal or patreon.com/Cliff Ravenscraft and become a $10 a month subscriber to the audio journal. And start with episode 168. The only thing is, I want to share with you, if you start with episode 168, or I'm sorry, did I say one? Yeah, 168 is correct. If you start with episode 168, it's an hour and 15 minutes long. And when I created that first episode with my thoughts on Think and Grow Rich, I had no idea that I would intend to create an ongoing series of podcast episodes inside of the audio journal. And so it's an hour and 15 minutes, and I am all over the place, bouncing from the front of the chapter to the end of the chapter, in the middle of the chapter, back and forth, leading me one thing and the other. I think it's all valuable. It's just not as orderly as what I would intend it to be. But if you want, you can listen to that for free. You can go to mindsetanswerman.com/audio journal and look at the post and keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling till you get episode 168. You can listen to that episode for free. You can also listen to episode 173 for free as well. But the rest of them, if you like those two episodes, I promise you this, all the other future updates into this series, it's like every episode is laser focused on a single principle, a single idea. And it's 10, 15, 20, 30 or more minutes of me sharing all of my thoughts about my experiences that either back up or support, or maybe something that I challenge to accept what he's saying here. All of those things, that's what the audio journal is including these days. So again, mindsetanswerman.com/audio journal or patreon.com/Cliff Ravenscraft. Yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much for tuning into the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. I don't know when I'll come back with the next episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, but there will always be a minimum of one episode per week, each week for the audio journal. That's $10 a month at mindsetanswerman.com/audio journal. And as some people are saying, there may be as many as 10 or 15 episodes in a single week if I continue this journey that I'm on taking Cliff's notes and Think and Grow Rich and the other books that are sitting on my shelves to go next. All right, until next time, my friends, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.
Mindset Answer Man.